Hello, U.S. history class. This is your girl, Miss Whiteside. So hopefully you guys are having an awesome time getting things done. Hope you had a chance to enjoy some of that sun yesterday. Getting out for a run, getting out doing a few activities with your family is always good. The physical activity is very important, keeping your immune system strong and all that good stuff. So today I wanted to kind of, again, we're still in the 1920s, 1930s. I wanted to kind of touch on what is called the lost generation after World War One, who coined that term, and I also want to talk a little bit about the Red Scare. So again, you can always pause this, take your time, jot down some notes. I will also try to set up a forum for you guys to chime in and give your comments and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the lost generation. And so here we have, this is the term coined by Gertrude Stein, okay, to describe young American artists, mostly writers, who rejected American ideals in the 1920s and moved to Paris. I will go to Paris or big cities in New York were also places that people would go to kind of live this bohemian lifestyle. Again, party it up, live for today, thinking things were probably not going to last. Famous members would be, of course, Gertrude Stein herself, Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and of course, a few others would be big names that go at this time period. Like as you guys read about the Great Gatsby, I'm not sure if that's your sophomore, junior year, but that is definitely a huge read that reflects this time period. All right, so the end of the world. That's what it felt like. The end of the world. Intellectuals thought World War One was the end of the superiority of Western civilization. Okay, which is also going to be a part of that fear when we get to the Red Scare. Rejected American political agenda, including the League of Nations. Sorry, let me go back there. So if I could pull this down a little bit so you can see that. So the League of Nations. All right. All right. Literature and the hopelessness of the 1920s. So you have T.S. Eliot. This is another big name. The Wasteland. He wrote that in 1922. J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings. I think some of you guys probably read that maybe your freshman year. I know I read that in high school my freshman year. Also, when I teach English, a lot of times I do that with eighth graders. Freshman, Lord of the Rings is a big one. Also, F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. All right, so let's get to our modern art. Okay, so the 1920s, after the war, we start to see this idea of the modern art, where it's not just this, fuzzing in things. It's kind of becomes very abstract. So I'm going to move this down here so you can see. All right, so old forms of art wouldn't express the deep distress caused by World War One. In many cases, people did not want to remember the war too clearly or too exactly. World War One changed the way people perceived the world. So let me go up here, move this up. So this is where we kind of get the idea of Cubism, and Picasso becomes a super huge name. Cubism was born out of the experience of World War One battlefield. At night, exploding bombs lit the sky in quick flashes, causing the world to look disjointed, distorted, disordered, and broken up into stark pieces. And objects are broken. So bring that down for you. So a really well-known piece of this time is the Guernica. Okay, you'll definitely hear about this all the time after World War One. Again, it was this idea. This represents how people died, uh, definitely in a very dramatic way. People losing limbs, all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of to really try to like shock you in a sense, like, wow, look what's going on in the world. Here's another one you can see. very abstract again. See a little bit of the idea of the jazz age during this time as well, the music that's being made. Again, if you look at this piece of art here, it kind of gives an idea of being frightened, not knowing, scared, someone who possibly lost someone after the war. All right, so I want to go to my next one, which is the Red Scare. I'm going to kind of go through that one pretty quick. I did post these notes for you already on Google Classroom, but talking about the Red Scare kind of gives us an idea as we go into the 40s, even the 50s, what that looks like and why we have such a fear of people who are what we might call radical. So the first Red Scare, so remember the Russians were communists. The Bolsheviks took power, got rid of the Tsar Nicholas. He becomes the last Tsar or last king of Russia. The Bolsheviks come in, you have Lenin takes power, and then soon after him becomes Stalin. Okay, so that will definitely be our big conversation when we get to the Cold War because Stalin will still be alive. Communists took over Russia in 1917 and Hungary in 1919, meaning that everybody gets the same amount. Everybody works, okay? And basically we form what is called these dictators that rule everything. So there's no, okay, let's take a vote or I'm going to run my business and make extra money. You can't do that in this type of society. The dictator runs all of that, controls all of that. So if you're not part of the dictator's party, you're definitely going to be living a very poor life. And this is why many Western countries are very fearful of that because no one wants to live a poor life. So communists tried to take over Germany in 1919 but failed. Americans became distrustful of Europeans, especially Southern Europeans like Italians, Eastern European Jews, because they thought they might bring over troublesome ideas like communism. So they had what is called the Pomerades. That was in one of the tasks that you guys read there. And then also the Immigration Act of 1921. So this is where we really begin to limit who's coming in. We definitely shut all the Asians out during that time and we try to limit the Southern and Eastern Europeans. But if you're from the Western part, you're doing pretty good. All right, so the first Red Scare, strikes and labor unrest. So you have people who are basically feeling this level of fear, probably kind of like now, and people are wondering about what's going to happen to my job, how am I going to feed my families. So you have extremists even sent letter bombs to the House of Attorney General A. Mitch Palmer. January 1920, federal agents in 33 cities arrested thousands of suspected radicals and charged them with anarchy, meaning people who do not want any type of government. Many were innocent. More than 500 were deported without an actual trial. All right, so I'm not going to read all of this. This is something you can take a look at. Like I said, you can pause this and take a look at it. Cause of arrest, um, incitement of riots. You have August 30th, 1893, guilty 1 year in prison, cause of arrest, open air speaking on anarchism, women in marriage, and the Spanish political event, September 7th, 1897, 1 night in jail, ordered to leave town or face 3 months in jail. So these are all different cases or causes for arrest. And you can see some of these are just someone maybe speaking out, distributing birth control information. Just think someone being arrested for that. So you can see the fear that many Americans had this time. If you were speaking out anything against the government, you found yourself in the situation where you were arrested. The second Red Scare, China. Okay, so many Americans feared that communism would take over the world. 1949, China becomes communist. Okay, who else is going to become communist? This is going to spread. This becomes this big old fear. 1949, Russia builds their own nuclear bomb. Woo, communists with bombs now too. So things are getting pretty scary. 1950, communist North Korea tries to defeat South Korea. That's when we find ourselves in the Korean War. North Korea receives military and financial help from the Soviets, other communists, and also from China. So you can see how these communist countries are now beginning to support each other. and then democratic countries are trying to support each other. Again, that's going to lead us in our later conversation when we get to the Cold War. All right, so real quick here, loyalty programs. These are things you probably should be familiar with. President Truman established a federal employee loyalty program in 1947. All new government employees were checked for possible disloyalty. Often the accusation was enough to have someone fired or prevented from getting a promotion. So you can see how some people they don't like somebody, you got to be very careful. Millions were investigated, several hundred removed from their jobs, few arrests. What do those few facts tell you about the dangers of communism in America? It created a lot of fear. All right, so communist spies in America. So actual spies in America, we still have them. Alger Hiss was a high-ranking State Department official who was accused of being a spy, convicted of perjury, lying to the court. Then you have here Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were accused of passing atomic secrets to the Soviets during World War II, convicted and then executed in 1953. So if you think about it too, if someone's passing on information like that to possibly someone that's a communist country, the Americans are very fearful of that. Recently released secret Soviet records indicated that the Hiss and Julius Rosenberg were guilty, while Ethel was probably innocent. All right, HUAC. This is the House of Representatives had an House Un-Americans Activities Committee. Okay, so definitely a term to be familiar with. We'll talk about that a lot later. That investigated communist infiltration of government agencies and the Hollywood movie industry. So you had a lot of actors who had to be very careful of their roles or what they might say off camera and things like that. They could easily begin having different CIA, whatever, watching them because they may feel this is somebody who's going to influence the public because of who they are as actors and actresses. What if they speak out against what the government is doing? So HUAC, um, the HUAC charged that many in Hollywood used to be or still were communists. Hollywood, with government encouragement, had even made pro-Soviet Union films during the war. So this is another example of Hollywood writers, how they reviewed the famous Hollywood 10, refused to answer any questions invoking their constitutional rights. They had served jail time. Movie studios compiled a blacklist. So if you're someone who was an actor, actress, musician, even if you played music that was trying to make a point, a radical point about the world or society, you might find yourself on this list to be investigated. All right, so state laws intensify. So, for example, the Texas state legislature made it a felony to belong to the Communist Party, up to 20 years in prison. So, even if you're someone who found the communist ideas, like this would be a really great thing if it actually works, you could find yourself doing time just for your thoughts or your support. And that's it. All right, you guys have a good one. Like I said, pause, take your time, go through, write notes. These things that you see here, highlight HUAC. Make sure you guys are very familiar with these terms. And we will definitely be going over some more things, such as the Great Depression. I will cover that on tomorrow. All right, so stand by.